afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome the Sirius Ensemble.
Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, so we have Melissa Coleman on flute, Ian Sykes on clarinet, and Claire Kahn on cello. I heard the Sirius Ensemble last year playing a group of pieces, one of which was by Paul Smith. The Paul Smith piece on the program today, there is a program, and I'll go and get them and hand them round quietly. But Paul's one won't be played because we like to leave an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end. But Paul's one of our graduates, and Karina Bonchek is another composer whose piece will be played today. She's also one of our graduates. The other composers are Australians, with the exception of Alan Ridout, who's actually a British composer. So very pleased to have the Sirius Ensemble playing a good program of contemporary classical music. Thank you.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming to our concert. We are 3 of the members of Sirius Chamber Ensemble. The ensemble itself is a little bit larger. We have a mixture of strings, winds and piano. And with that flexible combination we can explore music for all different combinations of instruments, whether that's new music or from the classics. We collaborate with different artists. We've played on things as diverse as albums by jazz composers, we've played for film scores, we've played for musical theatre. But the thing that we all love most is playing chamber music, and I think you'll find that with any professional musicians. Chamber music is the thing that really brings you the most joy because you can really work intimately with your chamber music partners. You can solve musical problems together, and you really sort of come to communicate very closely with each other. And you don't really build those relationships in bigger ensembles like orchestras and musical theatre pits and things like that. So the music we're playing for you today is a mixture of things that were written for us and other Australian compositions that we found, and as Diana said, one piece from a British composer. A lot of the stuff that we do is in collaboration with composers, so we build connections with other composers in Australia, which is how we come to be here. We're good friends with Paul Smith, who is a graduate of UWS. He's written a lot of things for us, and we've played for him in his opera company as well. Diana was his teacher, and we've played some of Diana's music, and Karina Bonchek, whose piece is next, is also a graduate of UWS, who we met through Paul. And this next piece is really interesting. Karina's, what would you say, she's like a bit of a hippie, maybe? I don't know. She loves nature, she loves the environment, and she's written this piece which was for an environment/music festival, and it features whale song, pre-recorded whale song, and our instrumental parts sort of reflect the recordings that you'll hear as well. It's in 3 movements, each is for a solo instrument, so we start with solo cello, and we have solo flute, and then solo bass clarinet with the whale song. I hope you enjoy.
Thank you very much. The next piece on the program is a truly Australian piece. It's by a composer, Nigel Butterley, and he wrote it in 1993 for cello and flute as a birthday gift for his friend, Dulcie Holland, on her 80th birthday. And it was premiered at a concert in honour of her. And the piece takes its title from a short poem by Australian poet Kathleen Raine from when she was around the same age. And I thought I might share the words of that poem with you now. I could have told much, by the way, but having reached this quiet place, can say only that old joy and pain mean less than these green garden buds the wind stirs gently. piece on today's program is called The Emperor and the Bird of Paradise. This is by the British composer Alan Ridout, and I first heard this piece premiered at the National Flute Association Convention in America in Charlotte in 2011, and it was performed by the piece for whom the work was written, Paul Edmund Davies. Paul Edmund Davies is a very prolific flute player from England, and so he performed this piece for the convention, and I was so taken with this piece. And he told us the backstory. When he finished high school at the King's College, Cambridge, he went on a gap year and he did a tour of recitals. And Alan, the composer of this piece, offered to play with him. And Alan looked at the program they'd written and decided, I think this is a lot of playing for me. So he decided to write something with a story. He consulted with his theatrical friends and came up with what we're about to hear today. I heard this piece performed and I was so taken with it. I went home and I looked up where could I buy the music for this piece because it seemed like so much fun and I couldn't find it anywhere. I happened to have Paul's contact details and I wrote to him and I said, where can I buy this piece? And he said, oh, it's out of print, but here you go, here's a scan of my copy. So I was very delighted to receive that. I believe it's in print now, but I'm very pleased to be able to play it for you today. So The Emperor and the Bird of Paradise for flute and narrator.
There was once an old castle that stood in the middle of high blue mountains and deep forests, and in the castle lived a powerful emperor. He was guarded by fierce soldiers on horseback with swords. And wolves howled from the forests. On the terrace of the castle, behind iron bars, was the one thing the emperor really loved, a beautiful and sad bird of paradise. Every day, when the sun was the brightest, the emperor would go to see his bird of paradise, parading around the castle terrace with his mounted guards. He would offer her the choicest food on golden plates, and the purest water from his crystal streams. But the bird of paradise felt very lonely, even more lonely than the emperor. She would hardly taste a morsel of the food. And she would turn her head in solemn regret. And the emperor would return sadly to his castle. One day, when the emperor was looking forlornly at his bird of paradise, he heard the strains of a distant piper. For the first time, the bird of paradise began to eat. She ate more. And more. Until every dish was clean. The emperor was overjoyed and sent his guards to summon the piper from the mountains. The emperor ordered the piper to play the tune again, but the piper, being a daring young man, made to bargain with him. "First," said the piper, "take these prison bars down, for with my magic tune your bird of paradise will be quite still." And so the bars were taken down. And the piper began to play. As the boy finished his tune, he bent forward and kissed the bird of paradise. Immediately, the piper turned into a fine plumed falcon. Everyone was astonished as the falcon gathered the bird of paradise in his wings and carried her far, far away over the mountains. The emperor became very angry. He shouted and raged so much that the guards became nervous and clashed their swords. And the wolves howled as never before. On the ground was the boy's pipe. And the emperor was about to break it in two when he had an odd desire to play it. He began. Not very successfully at first. He blew it this way and that. And then he found himself sort of playing the same tune he'd heard before. The soldiers smiled as the emperor grew more and more pleased with himself. And the pipe gave the emperor endless happiness. And he knew that he would never be lonely again. And from that little bit of silliness, we go straight into our final piece on the program, which is a box of events by the Melbourne-based composer Joseph Giovinazzo. Joseph wrote this for us when we were travelling to Melbourne for the Melbourne Composers League series of concerts. They're a great little group. They have probably about 50 represented composers, and they submit compositions for performance. And we had, I think, 20 pieces to choose from, and chose a program of about 6 or 7. And this was our favourite by a long way. Joseph knows really well how to write for these 3 instruments. And we think that the piece, a box of events, is kind of, I kind of picture he's like a kid rummaging through a toy box, and he keeps finding interesting ideas and then sort of throwing them over his shoulder and trying a new little toy. There are lots of little themes, and they all kind of just meld together very nicely. So we hope you enjoy a box of events. until you write it. I don't think so, no. I've not heard of any.
I've not heard of any.
It'd be an interesting combination. Sometimes having the two bass instruments together, it gets a bit too bassy. And the good thing about the clarinet is I can sort of be that alto voice in between, but also be up sort of with the flute in the high register.
I just want to ask about, rehearsing. Like, do you live a long way apart? How often do you get together to rehearse?
We do live fairly close together. Claire lives about 2 minutes from where I work, which is quite convenient for me, because sometimes I duck away from work to have a little rehearsal at her house. And yeah, we're all within sort of a 20-minute drive of each other normally. But we all have such different timetables that can often be difficult. So at the moment, Claire's playing in Hamilton, so her weekends are completely out. She has 5 shows every weekend. Melissa has 2 young children, so evenings are not great for her. But we just sort of fit it in where we can around all of our various things. Monday afternoons are great for us.
I guess we just rehearse. Just asked how often.
We rehearse like leading up to a concert, basically. Yeah.
We plan our rehearsals around what we've got coming up, and in our ensemble we have some other instruments as well, so it depends on who the personnel are for the concert and when they're available and how much lead time we need and how much lead time we have.
Yeah.
And we kind of work it all in. Yeah. A lot of us are freelancers, and so it's a bit of a balancing act depending on what we've got in our calendar. Yeah, we make it work.
Sometimes we also program things judiciously. So, for instance, next weekend we're playing at a concert for classics at Picton, and they're a sort of older audience. They like to hear a bit of Bach and Mozart and things like that. So we're playing actually everything we played today, but interspersed with some Bach and Mozart and Beethoven. Yes.
I was going to ask, if somebody writes for you, do you have much to throw in about the logistics or playability and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we do tend to work quite closely, if possible, I think, and sort of workshop, like get together with the composer early on and play through it, or we, for composers who aren't in Sydney, we'll get together, play through and take a kind of list of things to go back to and say, maybe that's not the best option, or have you thought about this, or did you really mean this? So yeah, I think that's a process that we all really relish, actually.
Right.
Yeah, it's like being involved in the creative process of a new work is pretty special, I think.
It is. Yeah. You end up with something that's more idiomatic and
Yeah.
and the composer being something.
Yeah.
I think often the composer, it's so different for the composer once they hear it on real instruments, because so many are writing from a computer or from the keyboard. And so when you hear a cello play that line, you might be like, oh, that's not quite what I meant, or crossing the strings there doesn't work so well, or gee, the flute's really loud when you give them a high C. And so when you hear it together, you sort of, they tend to adjust things. One of our friends, Paul, who we talked about earlier, wrote a piece for us a couple of years ago now, and when he heard it, he realised the structure wasn't working, and that it needed just something different at the end, so he reworked it, and it was a much better product in the end.
And that was just from hearing it on the instruments.
Yeah, often tempos change a lot too. So if you have a tempo on the computer and then we're trying to play it, it might be a bit awkward, or else it's a bit slow, like it's hard to fit the phrasing into your breath. So the tempo can change, and that can change a lot of things too.
Do any of the ensemble write for
No.
the ensemble?
No.
Not yet.
That's a very good question, but no. No composers in the
We-
ensemble.
We have no talent in that area.
I'm sure that's not true.
Well, it sounds like we've got the high seas in the world.
Yeah.